King Sunday. And I have to say, I am a rather unenthusiastic Christ the King Sunday celebrator. Christ the King Sunday is a feast day that I have a lot of ambivalence toward, especially at this moment in our common life together as men dominate women in various ways and world powers dominate those who are less than. Christ the King Sunday, with its imagery of empire and control over, power of, leaves a little something to be desired for me. Except that I learned this Christ the King Sunday sermon preparation, that Christ the King Sunday was actually begun in 1925. It's rather late to our church calendar, by Pope Pius XI, as a reaction to growing nationalism and dictatorships all over Europe, and that it was meant to be a reminder that the God of love and compassion and mercy is the God and the ultimate power to which we are all subjects. It was adopted by the Episcopal Church in the 90s, officially, when we took on the Revised Common Lectionary, which was our effort to be in ecumenical relationships with Christian and other Christian churches, Protestant denominations of all kinds, in an effort to create more unity among the different denominations, to come and find common ground and still celebrate those places where we are different. So maybe there is something for me in Christ the King Sunday, even in this particular year with our particular global climate. Because who is this king that we are subjects of? And what does it mean that Christ reigns over us? What does it mean to be part of Christ's kingdom? Well, to me, judging from our gospel passages, most especially our passage today, it doesn't mean power over, control of. It means authority by relationship with. Jesus today promises that we can be in relationship with Him, with God, if we serve one another. If we meet each other's basic human needs for food, for water, for clothing, for health, for companionship, for welcome when we feel like strangers. And the text doesn't say if those who are hungry are fed, or if those who are thirsty are given a drink. It's not passive. It's active. Every time you feed one who is hungry, you give water to one who is thirsty, you clothe one who is naked, you welcome one who is a stranger. It's intimate, human relationship around our basic needs. It's physical. It's getting into each other's space and really caring for another. It's awkward. And I've seen you all wrestling with this over the last many months and years. Most especially last week, I sat in on the Outreach Committee's meeting, and there was a note that, yes, everybody needs money. We can always give money. And there was a struggle to figure out how, in addition to giving money, which is often the most helpful, how do we also build relationship? How do we make sure there's real human contact so that we are being changed by the people whose needs need to be met? That we're not just sending off our check and not really meeting Jesus, being in relationship with God. The Haiti trip is struggling with this too. What does it mean to go down and be partners when our skill set may not be exactly what they need? How can we maintain the human relationship with a people who we have been so changed by and yet not put our agenda over and above their agenda? How do we not make our desire and God's desire for relationship not change the whole dynamic so that it's our needs being met rather than their needs being met? It's hard stuff and it's awkward. It means getting right in with people that we have on the surface maybe nothing in common with. But the invitation there is liberating. You know, I often struggle, people who are sort of outside the church often say to me, well, what do you mean you're in a relationship with God? What does that mean? And they're kind of right. It's not like I have coffee with God. It's not like I give God a birthday present. It's not like God and I get in a real for true argument and God comes to me and says, I'm really sorry, I bought you some slippers to make you feel better. But this gospel passage invites us into real human relationship with God. This is the actual physicality of relationship with Christ. If we enter into one-on-one relationships where we're meeting each other's needs, basic needs, for food, for welcome, for clothing, for life. So, what now? How do we do this? I don't know. This is what the Haiti trip is trying to figure out. And I think it's going to mean some missteps. It's going to mean us sort of overimposing sometimes and pulling back. It's going to mean us going into a place and feeling like we're not useful, which is really hard for us to do. It feels much better to be useful. And it also means asking questions of our basic lives every day, day in and day out. Who are we not seeing and welcoming? Who are we not feeding in some form or another? Who are we not clothing? Who's in some form of prison and we aren't visiting them there? We've sort of said, you know what, this is too much for me to handle. I'll be back when you figure yourself out. It means awkwardness and discomfort, but it is liberating. One of the most liberating moments for me in Haiti was that I was often asked to give patients blessings. I think probably less so maybe than my male counterparts the year before, but that's okay. We're making progress. And it was very hard to describe who I was, because folks weren't necessarily, they didn't really know what a female minister was. That didn't go together for a lot of folks. But I did get to pray with a good many people. And on the last day, I was praying with this elderly man. I think he was 86. And he was in good health, but he had come to make sure that that was still the case. And I asked him what he would like prayers for, and he was basically just thankful. He said, I just want prayers for continued health, and I'm really, really thankful. And I asked him his whole story, and he had lost his home in one of the recent natural disasters, but he was keeping on, keeping on. And so I prayed for him, feeling all virtuous. And at the end, I was about to get up, and he was the first person who ever asked, can I pray for you? And there was a language barrier, so there was a translator right in the middle of us. It was awkward. So as I'm having to go really slowly and the translator is translating and I'm using all this flowery language and the translator told me later, I wasn't translating all that. Come on, what are you doing? So this elderly man, he prayed for me. And he prayed that I would be happy and healthy and satisfied with what I had. He didn't ask me what I needed, and yet that was exactly what I needed. The night before we were going back home to all this abundance and this feeling of guilt, he prayed that I would be happy with what I had. So there is liberation in this awkward, messy relationship of meeting each other's basic needs. He met my need to be a stranger welcomed in. And he did it beautifully. And it was speaking with Christ. It was a real, actual relationship where Jesus was right there. And it was amazing. So on this Christ the King Sunday, I hope that that form of kingdom, which some people who are perhaps even more cheesy progressive than I am call kingdom, but it's not a kingdom, it's a kingdom, that Jesus is inviting us all to be kin with one another. That on this day, you might find your kin among those who seem so very different from you.